Hi, this is Susan Averre, medium at large, traveling full-time in my RV, traveling around the country, doing readings and doing spirit art and portraits of loved ones in spirit, and also pet portraits, and then readings for your pets as well. I wanted to show up today and create a very unprofessional looking video to describe what it's like to make contact with your loved ones in spirit, because I've had many people tell me in tears that their loved one in spirit has never connected with them. Why is that? What happened? Are they, mad at us? Or all kinds of crazy thoughts occur to people who are grieving. And the fact of the matter is, I have to then explain to them, you've probably had several contacts from spirit and you just have written it off as your imagination. How? They want to know. How have I had contact with spirit? Well, here are 6 ways you may have had contact with a loved one in spirit. 6 ways. And if any of these are familiar to you, if you've had any of these experiences or someone you know has, please share that experience with us in the comment section below. The first of these ways that you may already have had contact with your loved one in spirit is the sense of smell. Very common. You suddenly out of nowhere smell his cigars or pipes, or her cigarettes or perfume. These things are very common. Maybe you smelled her hairspray, or some other thing that would be associated with them and to that person in spirit only. And you wrote it off as your imagination. Well, I'd like to say to you this: if you were trying to dredge up the memory of the smell and it came to you, which by the way is tougher than you think, but let's say you were able to do that, then yes, it was your imagination. However, if it came to you and you weren't trying, you were thinking of something else, you were busy doing something else, your mind was drifting along, that is a spirit contact and represents a nice piece of evidence of the survival of the human spirit. Another one would be auditory. Maybe you hear your loved ones comment on what's going on. I've had this several times. Some people never get an auditory spirit contact. They're more visual people, and more about that later. But if you, for example, are thinking of someone and you're having a conversation with, siblings, let's say, and all of a sudden in your loved one's voice you hear their commentary, that is an auditory spirit contact. And I can give you a personal example. 10 years ago, my mother passed away age 90. She was in a nursing home. And after her passing, I'm given a little bag of her goods, and I'm walking out the nursing home toward my car, and I pass the dining hall, and I see a menu on the wall by the door, and it lists what they're going to be serving the next day for the 3 meals. And I thought very casually, well, she won't be having that. And I hear distinctly in her voice, 20 minutes after her passing, my first auditory contact with Mom, she says, "Thank God." Well, if you knew my mother, this is totally her personality. So very believable to me. And I was like too stunned to laugh. I laughed later about it, but that is a perfect example of an auditory spirit contact. Touch is another good example of a spirit contact. You may have had this. Most people describe it as a sense of walking through a spider web. Maybe your loved one in spirit touches your hair very lightly, it tickles just a little bit, or they put their hand on your shoulder, or you think you feel a touch or a kiss on the cheek, very gentle, very light, almost not there at all. That is a sense of touch as a spirit contact experience. And another one very common among people who have lost a life partner. I hear it described as, I go to bed the night of the funeral, let's say, and as I'm lying in bed, I feel the bed to press on one side as if he or she were sitting down on the side of the bed. Now, for some people, it's as brief as that and it's gone. For others, pardon me, the experience continues. Maybe they feel other sensory experiences with it, such as they hear the thoughts of their loved one, or they feel the touch of them lying down next to them on the bed. We'll talk about all these things in depth at another time, but this is a very common touch example of a contact with your loved one in spirit. The next one is taste. We've had smell, auditory, and touch, and the fourth one is taste. You are, let's say, discussing an upcoming holiday. Maybe even it's the first since your loved one has passed. And all of a sudden you're hit with the taste of their cranberry sauce, or the dessert she made, or the barbecue he was known for. These are perfect examples, and they're also very brief, very fleeting. Sometimes they're very strong. Visual, a visual one, usually only experienced by very visual people. Like the auditory is usually very verbal based people, but the visual is very visual people. Maybe artists might experience this a little bit more, or people who love movies and really immerse in them easily. This is described as, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something or someone walk by. Very brief, very quick. That's the typical visual spirit contact. And then the final one is electronics. I don't know what it is with spirit and electronics, but the two go together, as they used to say in the Campbell's commercial, like soup and sandwich. And the experiences are legion. Maybe you got good news from your sister who suddenly is pregnant or about to get married, maybe not in that order, but and all of a sudden, in the midst of hearing this, or a second or two after, the lights go on or off, or the TV goes on in the other room, or a radio. Sometimes a radio will change a station. All kinds of interesting things. One of my favorite that I heard from a client was her husband had been a firefighter. And 2 nights after his passing, I think it was, she tells me she was awakened in the night by her smoke alarm going off right in the hallway outside the doorway to their bedroom. And there was nothing wrong with the smoke alarm. It checked out, and there was no smoke. I think from a firefighter, that's a pretty nice piece of electronic evidence. And most common of all, perhaps, is the experience of you're thinking of your loved one, maybe, or you have a question about something important in your life, and it might even cross your mind, I wish I could discuss this with so-and-so. If only I could pick up the phone and call them. And all of a sudden a song comes on, and it's very meaningful. Might even answer a question, very common experience. And I can share a personal experience with that one. I told you about my mother's passing about 10 years ago. So I was in the nursing home holding her hand for the last, 20 minutes or so prior to her passing. And I'm telling her, as I'm holding her hand, you're going home and it's going to be okay. I'm going to hold your hand until you're in your mother's arms. You're going home. She passed away. I was told to wait in another room. They gathered her belongings, put them in that bag. I leave the building. I head to the parking lot. I get in. I turn on the car, and I had not turned off the radio. You know how it'll pop on when you turn the car on. And it pops on to that Chris Daughtry song, right to the line, I'm going home to the place where I belong. Coincidence? The concept of a coincidence with most of these, to me, is far-fetched, so far-fetched that I prefer to think that, sometimes the most direct, course is the most easy to happen, a direct line rather than zing, 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 zing. I think coincidences are unlikely in cases like this. It's just my opinion. And I want to say that if you've had any of these experiences, or anybody you know has, please tell us about them in the comments below. And please, if this was a video that you enjoyed, or was at all helpful, please smash that thumbs up button and hit subscribe so you won't miss any future videos that come out on these topics. And until next time, have a wonderful day.